Fleming is down the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Johnny, Dana and Tom. We are the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro matchday chatter in a podcast. And in this podcast, we're going to chat about the departures of Martin Payero and Djed Spence and the incoming of USA international Zack Steffen on a season-long loan from Manchester City. But before we start, guys, like we do every podcast, I want to know how you're feeling, especially about the deals this week. I want you to do it in 3 words. Dana, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll say excited because there's still so much of the transfer window left to actually see what Boro do. Intrigued because I am interested in how we'll fill the gaps that are in the squad already. Obviously, another one now with Martin Payero's exit. And impatient because as of the time of recording, these deals that we are going to speak about, with the exception of Payero, of course, have yet to be actually announced. Somehow Spence is not actually officially a Spurs player yet, even though it seems like it's literally taken it's added probably about 20 years onto my life, to be honest, the amount of time that it's taken. I think it's taken as long as the Stranger Things Volume 2, but, you know, it'll get there.
I'm going to say it's like being in a relationship but not being on Facebook officially yet. That's what it's kind of the vibes I'm getting. But Tom, what's your 3 words?
Well, I think impatient is a good one. I think, for me, everything this window seems to be taking an absolute age. We got off to a good start with Giles and Lenihan, and then and Liam Roberts, and we just haven't been able to kind of progress since then. It seems to have taken a while, even though Wilder's statements to the press were like, "I should be like in the next couple of weeks," and it hasn't happened. So the next part of that would be I can't remember the word I had, but
Great.
I think it was something like intrigued, but it was a different variation of that, and that's the only one that's coming to mind at the moment, just kind of like flashing in the head. But I really want to see what our recruitment's going to look like for the second half of the window. Really, like I said, we got off to a good start. I was expecting more of the same, and it just hasn't happened yet. So we need a strong kind of like second half of the window to really kind of top it off recruitment wise. And yeah, just excited for the coming season now as well.
That word will come to you in about 5 minutes when we're chatting about something completely
I'll
different.
Probably shout it mid-conversation.
just shout it out. I think my 3 words going to be "so it begins." I think with these deals officially being announced in terms of like Djed Spence and obviously Payero going out on loan, there's a sense of that Boro will get quite a few deals over the line, maybe this week or the week after. Appreciate we'll be dead busy because we'll be putting a few videos up based on the new signings that we probably do. But it'd be good for us to try and get the fans to relax a little bit more now and really take hold of these new signings that could potentially come in. But let's talk about Martin Payero first and do it chronologically, because he has left Middlesbrough after 1 year on Teesside and going to Boca Juniors, who are arguably the biggest club in South America, really. They're absolutely huge and very passionate in terms of fans as well. So I feel like it'd be nice for him to go back into there and enjoy Argentinian football once again. But Dana, what's your thoughts on the move? Because 1 year, you wish it could have been more, but I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, disappointed in the way that it's really played out for Martin Payero in a Middlesbrough shirt. I don't think anybody could have expected that it would fizzle out the way that it has. Although, to be honest, we should have expected it, because as Boro fans, we can never have anything nice, can we? But it just hasn't really worked out for him, stating the obvious there. But injuries definitely haven't helped. The timing of the COVID positive case around the time of the Mansfield game, in which he was going to get his opportunity, it's just been a massive shame. And I think in flashes, we've seen what he's capable of. There was games against Peterborough and Cardiff that I think his performances were good, although it has to be said that they're two very poor teams there. And Chris Wilder's come out and said recently that he had his opportunity, he just didn't take it. And I'm assuming by that he means the under-23s games as well, and then in training. I remember seeing him in an under-23 game. I can't remember who it was against. It might have been against Wolves. He hit the bar in that game, and he was okay. He weren't great, but he wasn't bad either. I think that probably sums up, maybe. And unlucky as well, obviously, with the COVID case, with the injuries. It's just a massive shame, really, because I think everybody hoped that it would be so much more than this. But unfortunately, it just hasn't panned out the way that we all wanted it to.
Yeah, Tom, what's your thoughts on it as well? Is it a shame that it hasn't worked out the way you wanted it to?
Yeah, definitely. I think with all the excitement and all the hype that he came in with last summer, it's just a real shame to see it not work out. Anytime you sign anyone from South America, you hope, and Argentinian, Brazilian, they're going to be like the next big thing, and absolute wonder kid from that region. But it just hasn't happened in his case. I thought he was unlucky with injuries, like terribly unlucky. It was just starting to kind of like really cement his place in the team under Warnock, and then there was a managerial change. Wilder comes in and he has to kind of work his way back in, which didn't seem to happen. Also, coming to a new country, you only really had Leo, who we could talk to. Obviously there were some issues with settling in and kind of adapting to the English game and stuff. So maybe it's just that a move back to Argentina is the best thing for him personally right now. Which, in that case, we've apparently been linked with other options. Aaron Moy was a name that came up this week, which obviously you get that Australian green line chemistry in centre midfield with Riley McGree, so can't complain about that. So yeah, I'm sure we'll have targets to replace him, but overall it's a shame it hasn't worked out for him. But hey, I mean, at least in his spell, he's got a penalty at Old Trafford to brag about. I'm sure that's something every young player would love to do.
Yeah,
and a good chant as well.
A good chant, scored against Cardiff. I mean, what more does a boy want?
That is the pinnacle.
That
Scoring against Cardiff is the peak of football.
Well, that's it. I mean, what more do you want in your career? Score than Old Trafford, score against Cardiff, and have a good chant. I mean, for me, roaring success. I mean, Tom, why do you think Boro have just allowed him to go after one season? Surely you would have wanted him to maybe double down now. 1 year in the country. I appreciate COVID restrictions have gone now. Probably starting to get fully fit as well. Appreciate there was the talk of potential injury in pre-season, but I mean, everything's said like that in terms if a player's going to be leaving. But do you think he could have had one more year? Do you think there was no harm in it?
I think there was probably no harm in it, but it's probably better for him and better for the club that it has worked out this way. I think for his side of things, obviously there might be an element of homesickness. He's more kind of suited to the Argentinian league, and realistically, if you look at our kind of depth chart now, Crooks is going to be ahead of him at right centre mid anyway, so he's still got to work towards getting that space, and he's not going to be getting a lot of football. And then from our side of things, it kind of goes from a long-term project of him having to adapt to English football to bringing in someone who can contribute right now. Which, if we're absolutely gunning for promotion this season, is what we need rather than, a second string option who is still adapting.
It is only a loan, and there is an option to buy, apparently. Do you think there is a way back for Matt Payero at Borodana?
No, I think that's it for him now. I think the chapter's closed. I just can't see a way that he forces himself into that team. Even next season, you never know what division that we're in. Even if we are in the championship still, I just can't see it. He is going back to Argentina, so it seems like he's kind of being restored to the default, the league that he knows. If Boro had that vision in mind of him still being a part of the plans, then I don't think they'd be sending him back to Argentina, because Chris Wilder did mention in a press conference that the South American leagues just aren't the same intensity as the championship. So I would think there, and I think we've spoken about this on the Telegram chat and in the discussions that we've had kind of offline, it would be better to send him to a league on loan where the intensity is that of the championship or similar. But the fact that we've sent him back to Argentina says to me that it's pretty much done for Payero at Middlesbrough, which is a massive shame. But as I said, we should have really seen it coming.
Yeah, I think it's a shame. I think it's a real shame that it probably hasn't worked out as the way we wanted it to. There's definitely a player in Martin Payero you could see in glimpses of his ability and his touch and his movement and his aggression at times. And he did show some real quality, especially in that game against Cardiff, where he scored. I thought he was probably the best player on the pitch, and it showed. I thought this is the Martin Payero that we've bought, and this is where he's going to be. I think he was a good signing at the time. I still think that it was a relatively okay signing overall if you were to assess it. I mean, it could have been better. He was just really, really unfortunate. Probably smashed a few mirrors before he got on the flight from Argentina to Teesside. But it's I don't want to close the door fully on Matt Payero. He could obviously come back and maybe thrive after a year of just playing regular football once again, getting himself back fit, maybe having that experience of English football and trying to adapt his game a bit further at Boca, and then maybe come back for a pre-season in the next year and potentially look good again. But it's certainly not a flop of a transfer. I think it was just an unfortunate transfer for Boro right now, but it could still always be good. You never know. Boca could have a good fee for him in the future. We actually make profit on him because there's only 2.8 million or something that we paid for him. So, but it's not the end of the world. But we do wish Martin all the best. But let's talk about someone who's not going to play in a Boro shirt in the future, and that is absolutely certain because Djed Spence is going to Tottenham Hotspur for an initial fee of 12.5 million, rising to 20 million, which would be a record fee for Boro to receive and surpassing Adama Traore to Wolves. Guys, let's talk about Djed Spence then, because it's probably the longest saga I think I've ever seen. He's burst onto the scene a couple of years ago, to quote Micah Richards. We put the Manjaros board on there during COVID. If Djed scores, we're going to Manjaros. The falling out with Warnock, the rise with Forest, the Twitter posts, the beef. It's been just a whirlwind. I just don't really know how to describe it, to be honest. It could be like a Marvel Phase 1 and 2 to 5 with, Thanos is came in somewhere. It seemed to be absolutely mental. But what's your thoughts on the saga itself, then? Djed Spence just thought.
Yeah, I'm disappointed with how it's transpired for Djed, and I've done a video on this that should hopefully go up before the turn of the year, but it's just I thought there would be better progression with him, and unfortunately that second season we just didn't see the same player as in the first. When we were introduced to Djed, it was that hungry, eager to stake a claim for a starting berth. He was a complete unknown and he looked like he was hungry for it. And I think we lost a little bit of that hunger in him. And I will say, and I mentioned this on one of the podcasts last season, that I thought he was starting to get his confidence back. And then Warnock played him a couple of games, then dropped him. And then you've got Anthony Dijksteel there playing right wing against Derby whilst Djed Spence is on the bench. It kind of felt like at that point he's unwanted by Warnock, and went out and did really well at Forest. And it was, me and you, Johnny, at least, have been fans of Djed on this podcast, and it's good to see that he has progressed. It's just a massive shame it's not been in a Middlesbrough shirt. But having said that, it has brought in a big fee and a substantial fee that Middlesbrough can reinvest into those problematic areas. We have 2 strikers, and the season starts in like 11-ish days. No, it's like 13 days, is it? Something like that. Yeah, just under 2 weeks. It's a big amount of money for Boro to spend to bring in improvements on the squad.
Yeah, I really like Djed as well. From when he came onto the scene in that game where we plucked out of midair, didn't we? And he came the next day, and started playing for us. And yeah, I was saying that raw talent, has the ability, showed his strengths probably this season at Nottingham Forest in a system that really does suit him, and showed the best out of him. And I think he's been benefited a lot from probably the TV exposure. Appreciate when you have a good game on television, your price goes up by a few million. He had a few of those, so hence why we probably got 12.5 million plus add-ons. Tom, I want to hear your thoughts first on the whole saga, and then I want to hear your thoughts on the way Boro have conducted this deal as well, because 12.5 million is a fairly good deal for someone that we probably weren't going to get maybe last year.
Well, I would say I'm glad it's all over, but it's not as of recording. Like, he's been pictured in a Spurs shirt and he's done interviews and stuff, but they seem to just be holding off on actually announcing him, which is the frustrating part, because we just want the money to be able to kind of like spend on our own team. But no, I think it's a great deal. I think for myself, I'm kind of like ambivalent towards it. I wasn't too bothered when he left to go to Forest, and I think with Djed, for me, it was more a case kind of similar to what Lewis Wing was or Adam Reach. I thought there was a lot of hype because it was easy to stand out in that team, but there were still areas of his game, understandably, because it was in a poor team and bad coaching system at the time, where he does need to improve, and I still saw that in some Forest games that I watched last season as well. So I don't want it to sound like sour grapes or anything because he's leaving us. I think there's quite a lot of that kind of like on Twitter and stuff. All the best to him at Spurs. Hopefully he can progress, because it works out better for Boro if he does. I just think this is a good case of striking while the iron's hot, while the hype's there, and we've managed to get a great deal out of it, which, like I say, the last couple of examples, like Lewis Wing standing out in a Tony Pulis team for being the only player who would actually attack and get a long shot off, or Adam Reach in the playoff season, I think it was, when we played Liverpool in the Capital One Cup. I'm not going to say the Carling Cup again. I said it earlier today, but there was a lot of hype around him afterwards. There were similar sort of fees quoted, and Boro saying we're not selling him and stuff like that. I honestly think it's a very similar situation to both those, but the difference being we've actually sold him when the price is the highest this time, rather than possibly dropping off as it did with like Reach and Lewis Wing.
You're absolutely spot on, Tom, with like around the hype. There is a lot of hype, and I think that's the reason why we've got the fee we've got. But how far can Djed go, do you think, Darren? Do you think England international is a possibility? He has made the jump, of course, to the under-21s and doing relatively okay there. But do you think that he has the chance to play for the mighty England?
It's a possibility. It's not impossible, but I think it's unlikely just because of the competition around him. I mean, how many times is there an England squad announcement and in the comments it's like, does Gareth Southgate want any more right backs? I mean, you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, Reece James, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker, James Justin, Kyle Walker-Peters. There's so many. It's like a conveyor belt of right backs. So I kind of don't really see it, but it's no slight on his ability or his potential. Ability-wise, definitely not at the moment, but his potential, he could. I just think the competition's probably going to be something that stands in his way.
Yeah, but I do think, though, if there's one manager that can get the best out of Djed Spence, it's Antonio Conte. Like, what he did with Victor Moses at Chelsea, what he does with wing-backs in general is insane. And I think that him and if Sessegnon plays on the left hand side, I think that's a very exciting wing back system that they've got. I'm pretty sure I think Perisic probably might play that role, but either way, I think he's probably the best manager to really see him develop. And you never know, £20 million could be seen as a snip in a couple of seasons, or it could
straight
be
in my FPL team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Or it could be a fee that we got. Bloody hell, we got 12.5 million plus for Djed Spence. But it's an interesting football. Is a funny game. But Tom, with Djed going now, do you think that there's going to probably be more spotlight on Isaiah Jones now? Because I appreciate there's a clip saying that Warnock said that Jones is the best wing back in the league. Appreciate Warnock said that he's credit to Spence. He's the reason why Manchester City won the title this season in the Premier League. And he's just responsible for saving the globe, to be honest, Warnock. But what do you think, Tom? Do you think there is going to be a lot more spotlight on Isaiah Jones this year? And how difficult could it be for him?
Well, yeah, I mean, firstly, obviously Jones has learned everything he knows about playing right wing back from playing left wing in Neil Warnock's system, where the ball will just hoof towards him and out of his reach. I don't think there's any question about that. But no, I think there was a bit of a spotlight on him last year anyway. I don't think anyone expected too much at the start of the season, and he had quite a few bright sparks then. But then when Wilder came in and he was becoming so much more instrumental in the system, I think expectations were raised then, and there was more of a spotlight going into the second half of the season. And I think he deserved all the credit that came with it as well. Like he was obviously integral, but we seemed to get figured out. And I'd say the last quarter of the season, maybe last third, it was more difficult for him because people were doubling and tripling up on him, and he couldn't do, the stuff he can do. Wilder, has said that he wanted someone on the left-hand side to emulate Jones on the right, so I think that's praise in itself. But then I think Giles is going to share that spotlight with Jones this season. I think possibly there'd be more expectation on Giles right now just because of a bit of a reputation he's come in with, and he's been hyped up in the last week of being our set piece specialist finally. Not like we didn't just
John
have one
Goodman.
and send him back to Argentina, but yeah, I feel like it's going to be a shared spotlight between the two. But in terms of Jones, I think we all already know what he can do, and he deserves every credit that he gets at the moment.
He does, and I think with Ryan Giles coming in as well, it gives us that balance. The best teams in the world have balance, and that's how they win trophies. And balance in a system is key to everything. Probably in football, if you strike the right balance, you'll win anything. And that's probably, i.e., Real Madrid this year, probably one of the worst Real Madrid teams in a long time. And somehow they had the right balance on the pitch in a system that just somehow worked. I think it was the raise of the eyebrow of Ancelotti, and it just seemed to go into carnage, and they used to pull something from nothing. But let's move on and talk about an incoming then, because Zack Steffen, World Cup year, needs game time, and arguably the number one shirt for Boro. But before we hear our thoughts, we spoke to Vince from the United States men's national team _thoughts Twitter page, and John from the Main Road Ramble to get a US and a Man City view on Boro's new shot stopper.
Hey guys, Vince from USMNT Thoughts Twitter account and podcast here. Okay, so his motives for this move are pretty simple. Zach is in a heated battle for the US number one with Matt Turner, who just signed for Arsenal. Berhalter has said he is going to factor in if one of them are primarily on the bench and the other is playing and in good form going into Qatar. So this is Zach's opportunity to play a lot, perform well, and put himself firmly over Turner, who will likely be behind Ramsdale for the foreseeable future. As is Zach's profile, he is a very good player with his feet. Playing out of the back is what he is known for. Of course, he's not Ederson or Alisson in this department, but he is well above average globally. He's very athletic and can make all the saves. In MLS, his reflexes would have been considered very good, but at the European level, I'd say he's pretty average here, and playing often in the championship versus a handful of times a year in cup competitions could develop him a little further. His main weakness is he is sometimes prone to mental errors and poor positioning because he's as aggressive as he is playing out of the back. Again, if he was playing more often, he may be able to improve in this department, but it will be one area to watch this year. He tends to kind of try to play that sweeper keeper role. Sometimes that aggression can get him into trouble. And this may be a little unfair to him, but he has developed a bit of a reputation as prone to injuries, particularly knee and back issues over the past few years. And as he becomes a regular in the starting lineup, it'll be interesting to see how his body holds up over the course of a full season. Off the field, you're getting an incredible asset to your community. Zack is very engaged in social issues and has been very vocal on the Black Lives Matter movement, headlined by his organization Voice Now. The supporters are going to love the person that Zack is most of all. Thanks, and take care of him for us. And best of luck in the World Cup later this year, but not too much luck since we'll be playing you on Black Friday.
It's difficult to know what Zack Steffen's capabilities actually are. Before he came to City, he was outstanding in MLS with Columbus Crew, and that led to his promotion to the US men's national team kind of senior setup. But being City's backup goalkeeper is one of the toughest gigs in football in terms of proving yourself. Being the understudy to the keeper who has won Golden Glove in the Premier League for the last 3 seasons is just not an easy place to make a name for yourself in this game, especially in a World Cup year, which is, I think, one of the reasons why, after City made this move for Ortega, that Steffen is looking for first-team football elsewhere. Is generally comfortable with the ball at his feet, but it's difficult to be anywhere near as comfortable as Ederson in terms of his calmness. So I think Steffen was trying to emulate that a little bit when Mane chased him down back in April at Wembley. So all that is to say that Steffen's early career looked really, really good, but I will say that his main strengths seem to be in shot stopping, which is actually, you know, a lot of people said about Ederson this season that his shot stopping was pretty poor. Generally speaking, Zack's a great shot stopper. He made some really great saves for the US men's national team in their World Cup qualifier against Mexico last season, and also made a fantastic save in the Carabao Cup final from Lo Celso. So he definitely is a kind of a great typical goalkeeper in terms of his shot stopping ability. And I do have a feeling that when he gets to play regular football, that's what you need as a goalkeeper. Because even when he gets his chance at City, he's not facing 5-10 shots a game. He's probably facing 1 or 2, and he's potentially been criticised about that. But that's a different skill in terms of that level of concentration. So I do think that Boro are getting a good player and a good goalkeeper, someone who's going to be a great presence in the dressing room as well. And yeah, I think he'll do well at Boro, and I hope he does, and I hope he gets that number 1 shirt for the US men's national team in Qatar in November.
So some nice words from Vince and John there on Boro's new signing, Zack Steffen. But guys, want to hear your thoughts on the move as well. Clearly coming in to be number 1 dinner, isn't he? And what's your thoughts on him signing? Because they were seem to be nice words about him.
Yeah, it's a big statement. Obviously, signing City's number 2. I mean, he's number 3 now because they signed Ortega. But at the point of Boro being linked with him, he was their number 2, and he was playing in a cup final last season. And I mean, Pep Guardiola obviously trusted him to be that number 2 behind Ederson. It is a big coup, and it's a big statement of intent for Middlesbrough to say what we were actually looking to do next season, which is obviously get promoted. I think we're very serious about it, and obviously being a World Cup year as well, there's a massive incentive there for Zack Steffen to impress and improve and to grow as a number 1, which is something that he hasn't had since he was at Columbus Crew. So yeah, I'm happy with the move. I'm loath to go too big on a goalkeeper because the past 2 have not been good. Slightly unnerved that Steffen wears number 13, but hopefully it's lucky 3 for Boro and that we actually have a decent goalkeeper.
I hope so. I mean, it's a very low barrier if you want to put Max Bettinelli in there and Joe Lumley. But in terms of your thoughts, Tom, our goalkeeping resident, of course, you love to critique goalkeepers. But what's your thoughts on the move? Dana's happy. Two fans are happy. We've interviewed. Are you happy?
Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be similar to Wilder's sign of Henderson for Sheffield United. Seems to have a good record with goalkeepers and being able to pick them. And we've upgraded our goalkeeping coaching department this season, and obviously brought 2 goalkeepers in as well. It looks like he's pretty much what we need in terms of the way Wilder wants to play. As was mentioned there in the clips, he's more of a sweeper keeper, which I think was trying to be coached into Lumley and Daniels last season, just to mixed effects, really. I don't think Lumley handled it all that well, but I think it just goes to show he's not really a natural sweeper keeper. But good with his footwork as well, which is also crucial. I think in terms of playing out from the back, and I'm not talking about like goal kicks or anything like that, I'm more in terms of the recycling of possession. I think I'm very comfortable now with our back line, knowing that we've got 2 wing backs and then 3 centre backs who are all good with the ball at the feet, and now a goalkeeper who's good with the ball at the feet. I think we're going to be able to kind of get it out of defence a lot more effectively this year. And obviously, going back to what you were saying earlier, Johnny, it's all about balance, and it looks like we're going to be going into this season with a very strongly balanced defensive line / goalkeeper as well. So it's all just about recruiting at the top of the field now. But yeah, he does seem to tick a lot of boxes for what we were looking for in a goalkeeper.
Yeah, we absolutely are. In terms of adding a good foundation to the team, I think great teams have a great foundation in terms of the goalkeeper, the back line, the balance, just that real steadiness of a team can pay dividends throughout a season. But Dana, what do you think Zack Steffen actually brings to this team in terms of ability? I'm assuming you said there was a bit of an upgrade, but is there anything else? Obviously, you've got footwork, distribution, shot stopping. Is there anything else that you want to look at?
Well, I think it's just the point of the obviously footwork and things like that. Tom obviously mentioned he wasn't speaking about the kind of goal kicks and things. I think what I've seen on social media in a lot of discussions about Middlesbrough is that Wilder wants his goalkeepers to play the ball out from the back, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's just the distribution has to be good in terms of actually playing the ball upfield, but in terms of being in possession of the ball, being comfortable with the ball, his feet, we don't really see that from him. What we've seen the most from Chris Wilder's goalkeepers at Middlesbrough since he was appointed in November was that sweeper keeper, and with Steffen, as Vince said, being that aggressive sweeper keeper, it ticks a massive box. Out of all the attributes of a goalkeeper, we can safely say that that is what Chris Wilder wants out of his number one. He wants them to be decisive and confident and come out when they need to. And I think that was Joe Lumley's downfall, is that he was too indecisive. He wasn't ever confident or fully sold on his own actions when he was coming out, and that's why we saw so many problems. But it's going to be interesting to see how Steffen actually plays, because as I said, he's not been a number one since he was at Columbus Crew. Is there maybe rustiness there? Appearances have been fleeting. They've been few and far between here and there. Cup competitions. This is a big opportunity for him, and it's a big opportunity for Middlesbrough as well, because as we've mentioned, the past 2 goalkeepers that we've had, and you can even throw Luke Daniels and Jordan Archer into that mix as well, have not been great. They've not convinced. So as I said, I'm hoping that this is third time lucky and that Steffen can be a good shot stopper, good commander, and good playing that sweeper keeper role as well. So fingers crossed that he's actually a good keeper for us.
Yeah, and look, if he doesn't work out, you've got a really good understudy in Liam Roberts as well. You don't get League Two Team of the Season and get all the awards and accolades that he got last season if you weren't a good goalkeeper. And yes, he is making a step up, but I think it's a good sign for Boro. I know we did that in a previous video where we broke Liam Roberts down, but I think really good understudy, an improvement on last year in terms of the keepers that we had with Zack Steffen coming in. International as well, going at the World Cup, wanting to impress. We've upgraded that keeper department as well with a new coach. I think it's a really, really good sign for Boro in terms of that defensive foundation that we want. And he looks like he's going to bring confidence to the defense as well, which is a big part as well in terms of leadership traits. And I think that will hopefully help us throughout the season. But guys, that's very much it. Thank you very much for joining me as always. And to the listeners and people watching us on YouTube and on the podcast providers, thank you very much for watching and listening to us. But 1 in, 2 out, and a busy week expected for Boro. But this has been the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was like Boro Match Day Chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.